Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is great to have you here today. My name is Scroat, and we are taking another look at From the Depths, more specifically our Let's Learn series, where we are going over the basics, sort of teaching you from the ground up how to understand, most of the basic things in the game. So in this episode, we're going to be looking at building basics, and to do that, we're going to hop into the Vehicle Designer, and essentially we're just going to be looking at just the building interface, the different controls you can expect to use, and just sort of how to navigate around the different block types. Pretty simple stuff. So when you first hop into the Vehicle Designer, you're on this little platform. What you want to do is press B. B is the hotkey the game starts with to enter you into build mode. And of course you press B again to hop out of build mode. Sort of takes you in and out of your character. So let's hop into build mode here. And first and foremost, you're on this little raft when you start the Vehicle Designer. You can actually start building right on this if you want. But technically what this is a vehicle type. So let's take a look at that first. When you are in build mode, you can press E, and E is like your inventory, okay? And this is sort of all of your building options. And if you look along the left-hand side of the screen here, we have a ton of categories. Blocks, water, air, control, resources, engines, yada yada yada, all the way down to prefabs. And then of course we can go back, which takes us out of the inventory mode there. So we'll press E. And what we're going to look at first is this new object tab. Technically, when you're starting a new build, this is where you would look first to select your base structure type, I'll say. And we've got vehicle, which is anything like something that flies in the air, or a boat of sorts, or anything in between, some sort of sailboat or something with hydrofoils. Now you've got your fortress type. Now, like when you first start the campaign, you start with a fortress, and a fortress is essentially like a huge hovering fortress, essentially a building or whatnot that is really meant to kind of be stationary. They're not meant to move around that much, but they can, and they hover, and they're great to have as like a home base essentially. And then there's structure. Structure is just a very stationary object. So to start, we're just going to look at vehicles. So let's go ahead and when you hit B, enter build mode, we'll go new object, we'll hit vehicle. And what you can do, so WAS and D will move your building sort of square, or your selector. It'll move it around. And something you should note is you can double tap in any direction to go twice as fast, which is, it's nice to know. Once you're building, sometimes the distance you want to build on can be pretty great. So that's helpful. So what we're going to do, we're going to double tap to the left here, and then we're just going to place down a block by left clicking, and now we have a new vehicle. Essentially, it's just a single square, and you'll see here we're floating up to the surface. So the next thing you should know is caps lock. Caps lock is a great key, because what that does is in the Vehicle Designer, that will raise your vehicle out of the water and make it a lot easier for us to work with it, to build on it. And it's easier to see too, especially if your vehicle dips under the water a lot. This way it'll always raise it up out of the water. So let's take a look here. Let's press E again, and let's take a look at the block categories. So when you are building a ship and you're not putting any components down like a cannon, or building laser systems or AI, we just want to work with basic block types, and that is up here in the blocks tab. And what you're presented with is an array of 6 different blocks, and there's some down here. We're going to ignore the rubber block and the light block for now, okay? So yeah, here's your selection, and each one of these have different characteristics, different statistics attached to them. So when you mouse over one, for instance on the right hand side of the screen, you can see a wood block at its most basic form, a 1 meter by 1 meter wood block, has 100 health, 3 armor, and has a 0.1 weight. If we look over here at the stone block, you can see it's got more health, more armor, but it weighs a lot more. So, these, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of each of the different block types with what you're wanting to build. Just something to keep in mind. But for now, we're just going to go to wood block, and we're just going to select a wood block. And what you can do, once you've moved WAS and D, to move your block around, so when you're moving it, you can see how sometimes it's green, sometimes it's blue, and sometimes it's red. When it's red, that means there is an obstruction in the way. And that means if you left click right now to place a wood block down, what you'll do instead is remove the block that's under your cursor. If the block is green, that means that is a good place you can place your current block that you have down. That means there's no obstructions. That means it will attach to another block. So if we left click, you can see that block goes down. Now the other color is blue. That means there's no obstruction there, but it also means you can't build this block here. There's nothing to support the block, either by attachment or another surface that it can stick itself to. So there we go. We'll place a block down there. So another interesting thing to note, when you're looking at the green outline of our selector here, you know it's got the box, and on the top you can see that arrow pointing forward. That means the block you're going to place down is going to be facing that direction. If a block were to have a face, it would be in that direction, essentially. And what you can do is, if you rotate your camera, for one, you can tap the G key, and that will change the orientation of the block to face that direction, which is very useful when certain blocks face certain ways. In fact, let's get one real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's select a wood beam. And remember, you get there by pressing E, and if you're not already in the wood block area, you go to blocks, wood block, and then wood beam. So you can see the difference between wood beam and block is that the wood beam is 4 meters long. So here we go. This will make a lot more sense now. With a wood beam, face a different direction, or any direction, just tap G. And you can see, look, which way the beam faces. It faces the way your camera is, because that's sort of the front-facing area or direction for that block. Very useful, especially if you want to place blocks like, you can see there I moved the camera to get the block to face up, and now when you place one, it's in the up direction. So, along with moving the camera and pressing G to change your block facing, you can also do this. This is the more advanced way to do it, but it's the way that I would recommend to do it, to try to learn. Hold the Tab key, and you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, these are all of your block commands, your building commands you can use to manipulate your cursor and your blocks and what's going on. So hold the Tab key, and you can see when you do that, we get a whole slew of different commands here. And you'll notice W, S, A, D, Q, and E are block rotations. So give it a try. Try pressing, while holding Tab, press Q and E. And you don't see much happening, right? You can just see a barely noticeable rotation of the block. But notice what happens now when you press W, A, S, or D. I'm pressing D, so the block spins. This is a great way to change the orientation of your block. So just something to play around with and, you know, to get used to, because I think that's a much more efficient way to build. Now, another great command you're going to want to know about is the N key. N is in Nancy. When you press that, that is mirror mode. So I've pressed it, and when something is activated, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see like N for mirror has moved out to the right. That means it is activated. And that activates wherever your camera is facing and where you are, where your current block is. So let's select a wood block. And so you can see my cursor's right here. If I press N, so it's off right now, I press N. You can't really see it here, but we're in mirror mode. So if I build here, you can see it builds on both sides along the axis that we have mirror mode activated on. And after a while, if you have a bigger ship or more blocks, see, you can start to see little sparklies. These little sparklies represent where your mirror mode is. So if I turn it off again, you can see there it goes. If I press N, now you can see whatever you build on the left side of the glowy, on the glowy dots will be built on the right side of the dot. So if I build here, we get one on both sides. Pretty cool. Another great thing to know is this. So let's enter the inventory, go back to blocks, and let's pick, let's say, light alloy. And you can see all of these have subcategories, and all of these blocks, they're just different angled blocks, and they're meant to be used in building. So when you're trying to do like a cool angled design, you can take a look at all of these and find the block that will best fit what you're looking for. But for now, let's just pick an alloy block and try this. Hold shift, and when you hold shift, you're in replace mode. So what you want to make sure is, yeah, your cursor's red. It means you're over a current block. And when I click, boom, we've replaced those wood blocks without blowing them up with a different block type. Now, another great command to know is the P key. P will shrink your blocks and allow you to see much more at a quick glimpse. And this becomes extremely useful when you have a large ship spawned in. For instance, let me do that, and I'll show you just what I mean. I'll go to one that I've built here. We'll bring in a River's Delight. How about that? So we spawn this in. This is the ship I built. Now, if I enter build mode on the ship, you can see it's hard to tell, really, you know, like what all the subsystems look like. But if you tap P, anything that's part of the main ship is going to become a small block. Very useful, super helpful, definitely something to remember when you're building. Now, you may be wondering why the turret, for instance, this turret up here, is not shrinking. That's because this game treats turrets and weapon systems as different connections on your ship. So, when you're in build mode, what you want to do, your bracket keys are your friends, your left and right brackets. So if I hit the right bracket on my keyboard and you have a weapon system built, it will attach your camera to that weapon system instead of your ship. So now, look what happens if I press P. Now just this weapon is what we are working with, essentially. And to get back to your ship, you can always just tap the left bracket. Takes us back to your ship. Or so it should. Let's see. Yeah, it did. Okay. So that's just something to note, you know, something good you want to be aware of when you're building. And another critical thing we will want to look at here, let me restart the designer. And this is a great one. This is fill mode. So I'm going to enter build mode. I'm going to turn on mirror mode now by pressing N. You can see the light sparklies there. And let's just extend this out, sort of like an outline, a frame. So we're going to go up and around. And you can see when you're building, any way your camera is facing when you decide to place a block down, that's the direction that you're going to build into. So for instance, you can also, like, you use left click to build forward, right? But you can use right click to build backwards. So if I right click, it takes the camera in reverse. So let's build back out here. So let's say you have a hollow structure like this that you've built, and now you're needing to fill this in. Well, there's a great command for this. It's the fill mode. So what you want to do, you want to move your cursor along the same plane as the outline you want to fill in, and that outline has to be totally enclosed. And then you can pick the material you want to fill it with. It can be the block you're working with, or maybe we can do glass. And then you just press F. And you can see the game fills in all the empty space with the block you have selected. Now in this case I built the windows kind of the wrong direction, but you know, you get the gist of it. It makes building a lot quicker, especially when you know, that's what you're looking to do, fill in a large amount of space. And again, you can press caps lock to raise your ship out of the water. Don't forget that. Makes things a lot easier. And as the last thing we're going to look at on this, we're just going to go over these categories. We're not going to look into them, but I'm going to explain what they're good for. So blocks, this is, you know, your basic building blocks. When you're looking for structural building, this is your category you want. Always come here. Now everything else is stuff you either put outside the ship, attached to AI, or they're custom weapons you're building, or they're things that allow you to control or do aesthetics with, like placing chairs down or lights. So this water tab, this is all about boats. Everything boat related is in here. The air tab is everything air related, oddly enough. So this is for like airplanes or satellite systems or anything of that nature, really. These are the attachments that you will want to work with when you want to get something up and moving. The control tab has everything control related, so vehicle controller, you'll put this down on the ship to allow you to have rudder control and propulsion control. Spin block controllers allow you to control when you have placed spin blocks down in your ship. Allows you to control those. So everything here, with the exception of a chair, is control related. The chair is more of an aesthetic, so you could place this down and then, you know, you mouse over it and press Q and it puts your guy in the chair. So just something to note. The resources tab, this is everything that has to do with gathering resources or generating resources or converting resources, as well as resource storage as far as ammo barrels and fuel tanks are concerned. So, you know, it's something you'll get into more in the campaign mode, but ammo barrels and fuel tanks definitely you'll use a lot when you're building anything in the vehicle designer. Engines, you know, this is, hey, everything that's going to power your ship is here. So when you need a power source, which everything will for the most part, you're going to want to look here. Miscellaneous just has all sorts of stuff. Repair bots and tentacles for fixing up ships. Blueprints, spawners, doors, signposts. Again, just miscellaneous things that you can work with on ships. But these are nothing structural related, generally. So simple weapons. These are weapons that require no customization. You can place these down. They are ready to rock and roll. And it's just that simple. The missiles and torpedoes, this is where we're starting to get into the custom weapon systems. So this is everything that is related to building your own custom missile systems. And the missile blocks themselves even have further sub-customization in that when you place these down, you can put further parts on them, like the missile warheads or the missile propulsion systems or fins or IR targeting systems or laser designators. The list goes on. It's amazing. Okay, let's keep moving on here. Custom cannons. This is when you want to build your own sweet cannon. So when I spawned that ship in earlier, you know, it had that turret on the top. that turret system was built with all these custom cannon items, and we'll be dedicating an episode to each one of these different weapon systems, along with things like engines and resources. So don't worry, we'll get into this stuff in just a bit. You've got lasers, again, custom system, just like missiles and just like cannons. But this is a lot of fun to work with. They can be a little confusing at first, but once you see these things laid out, it'll all make sense. The AI system, this is the bread and butter of the game. This is how you control your ships and customize when, you know, things are going to be coming at a target, when they're going to be running away and re-establishing a combat run, as well as like how things will be controlled and weapons and everything of that sort. So very complex stuff, but it's easy as well. Once you see how to place it down, it'll really make sense. And of course, we've already looked at new object, where you can place your different types you want to build with. You'll notice under new object as well are two different turrets, well, spin blocks and turrets. And we'll get into these once we start looking at custom weapon systems. Load sub-objects, so you can actually save and create sub-objects, like turrets. Let's say you made a whole turret system, you could save it, and then you can keep placing it down. So you can see here, if I place this down, there is a turret system I built. Pretty cool, isn't it? Let's get back in there. And prefabs. These are things you can save, so you can... they're similar to sub-objects, but they're more structural related or component related, like engines, domes. Here's a dome I created, you can see. If I place that down, you can see we just made a dome. So there's a lot of complex stuff you can do with this, and it's all very cool. And once you see it, you'll realize it's actually not that complex. It's pretty basic. It's just the GUI kind of surfaces complexity in more ways than it should, I think. But hey, we'll be distilling all this information in upcoming episodes, so we'll stop this one here, you guys. This was Building Basics, and, you know, in the next episodes I will start looking at engines and basic design concepts, as well as boats and planes and custom weapon systems. So yeah, we'll stop here, and hopefully, if you're still curious on more, come join me in later episodes. And until then, thank you for coming by. If you liked, hey, we could always use more here. Like, subscribe at the Scrotorium, it would be great. And until next time, you guys, take it easy and stay classy.